I put my dad in the street against a heavyweight.
I've gone back to the dad. I've punched him a few more times.
5 blokes outside my front door. Can you come and help
One
me?
hell of a fucking story, so stay tuned.
This is Joe Pugh for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. Delighted to be joined here at a very tasty press conference by the head of Sky Sports Boxing, Mr. Adam Smith. How are you, Adam?
Good. I mean, what a press conference the main event was, and just fantastic to have all the great women on the card speak so brilliantly, so eloquently, I thought. And obviously there's needle and spice in the two big fights, but yeah, it just gets the pulses racing. It's all set for a wonderful night at the O2 on Saturday, and let's hope that the fights live up to all expectation, and I really think they will. I think this is a special night for sport, a really special night for women's boxing, and yeah, I can't wait to be in there at the O2, as I'm sure you can't, and everybody else. It's going to be banged out, and yeah. The talkie's over, and now we head to the weigh-in, and I'm sure everything will be fine, and they'll rehydrate, and there's huge anticipation ahead of Saturday night.
I know Umar spoke to you yesterday, but I want to kind of go through the card top to bottom because it is absolutely stacked. I think there's 11, 12 fights on the card. I spoke to most of the undercard fighters last night, and there's really a sense of an event and a sense of progress with Sky Sports and Boxer, that they're really making an intent with female boxing, and kind of the main event and the event itself is highlighting this.
Absolutely. I think everybody at Sky for the last decade has been a real was really pushed for women's boxing. You know, Jane Couch used to come and see us all the time, and she was a pioneer. I think London 2012 changed a great deal of perception. Nicola Adams' incredible achievements, Katie Taylor's, Natasha Jonas, Clarissa Shields, obviously so many others around the world. But in Britain, I think when Katie turned professional with us, and Matchroom and Barney Francis gave Eddie Hearn the nod and said, let's do this, I think Katie has just sown the seed for so much that's gone on. The likes of Terry Harper and Chantel Cameron and Savannah and everybody. And you know, we've been obviously across this for a long time, with Katie and Savannah both being Sky Scholars. So it's brilliant. And I think when Eddie moved on last summer, Ben and I had a chat, and we were both very much for developing a women's side to the team, to the stable, as big, if not bigger, than the men's side. And that shows how far we've come. It was really important for us to land Savannah and Tasha, and we fought really hard to get Caroline and Lauren and Karis. So yeah, as well as the likes of Ebony and Georgia and April and all the other great women up and down the country, we wanted the elite, and I think we've proved that. And I think Boxer have got the best women's stable in the world. You add Michaela Mayer from Top Rank as well. Top Rank, our colleagues too, and it all just adds up to being the greatest night for women's boxing. And if the fights can live up to the KT Serrano epic in New York, then we're all in for a real treat. But I think this is a big moment for women's boxing and women's sport, and it's wonderful to see the financial rewards they get, the exposure they're going to get on Saturday, free to air, not on box office, not on pay-per-view. We want eyeballs on it. We want the O2 banged out, and we want the next generation, the likes of your Laurens and your Carises and your Carolines, to take this sport even further. So yeah, it's just brilliant for all of us who've been very in favour of the way it's developed over the years, but pushing hard. It's a culmination of all that work, but most importantly, the work for the boxers and what they've had to go through. They've had to fight. Well, we know Caroline had to dress up as a boy, the same with Katie, and now I know that my daughters, or your daughters, if they want to go into boxing, they can, and there's great idols there for them, and there's great hope, and it's wonderful to see.
One of the real stumbling blocks in the growth of the female boxing is the lack of depth in lots of the divisions. Is your plan going forward to create that stable which is deep, and potentially you could actually have some all-British in-house fights eventually?
Yes, I think the key is that we have to make very good matches. That's the important thing. But I think as Al and Mark and Dimitri and a lot of them were alluding to today, the female fights have been amongst the best in the last 5 years. Katie and Serrano, Tasha and Terry, Katie and Tasha, Michaela and Hamadouche. I mean, it's just a handful. There's been some fantastic fights. So it just goes to show that the matches are so important, and they can be the best. So I really believe that women's boxing, or boxing in general, is going to go from strength to strength. You know, we're talking this week about maybe Fury and AJ fighting, which would be wonderful for British boxing. Crawford and Spence, these sort of fights around the world, and you add to the women's side as well. And I think we're going to get some great fights both in-house and globally. I think the most important thing, I think in 3 or 4 years' time, you're going to get such a wealth of talent at all levels in women's boxing that I think it's just going to be unrecognisable from a decade before, and that's fantastic.
We see Ben kind of disagree with Claressa there with the levels at the presser. We see each fighter kind of imitating both accents. How good is it that we're finally getting a rivalry, something the fans can get behind, the storyline?
I think that's really important. I think the narrative to this has been fantastic, and I think that is really important. We need that in boxing. We all saw Froch Groves. We've got the Conor Ben and Eubank fight coming up. British rivalries are great, but also ones across the pond, transatlantic. Mayweather Hatton and was fantastic because of the different sort of characters they were. And these two are very different. I've known Savannah for forever. Obviously, she was a scholar at Sky. She's quiet. She's unassuming. She's gone through it her way, and she's grown in confidence as a young woman who is now standing on top of the world. Claressa different. Claressa is very braggadocious, very loud and very opinionated, and both of them have got to be listened to in their different ways, and they've both done a fantastic job for themselves and for sport. So I love that. I love the fact that there is that people are talking about this as they're involved, they're engaged in the story, the gloves are off, they're behind the ropes. Have been easy for us to do this time because there is real narrative. And it was interesting the talk of the rematch and Mark saying it's up to the people. I believe if we get a great fight, we could see a trilogy here, because you need dance partners, and whatever Claressa says about and Dimitri says about levels, and whatever Savannah and Peter argue back with that, we need these sort of stories. Everybody remembers the likes of Ali and Frazier. Everybody remembers Bowe and Holyfield having 3, or Barrera and Morales, or Gatti Ward, and why not? Why don't we get a trilogy with the women now, with Claressa and Savannah? Let's see what Saturday night brings us first, but if it brings us a good, close, exciting fight, let's roll with it again, because that will help bring the sport even further on. Yeah, I agree with you. Rivalries and the narrative are important. We got it as well, Michaela and Alicia, and again, if we see another really good one, we could do that again. So, yeah, we're in a good place.
With Michaela's fight, obviously we see Bob Arum and the guys from Top Rank here today. A fight that you could potentially work on with them again is Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall 2. Is there any updates on that? Could we see that by the end of the year potentially?
I think we'll definitely get it again. Whether it will happen this side of Christmas or beyond, we have to wait and see. Obviously there's a lot to get through. Jack Catterall's become a boxer fighter. Josh Taylor with our colleagues and comrades at Top Rank. Remember, we've got deals with both Top Rank and Boxer, so it should be a pretty easy fight to make. And great to have Bob over with Michaela. Fantastic to have her as part of our output. We've commentated with her. She's fantastic outside the ring as well as inside it. But I have huge respect for Alicia Baumgartner as well, and what she's done in the sport, and the way she conducted herself up there today too was great. Eddie and Frank will be here tomorrow and Saturday. Bob's here. Dimitri, Mick Hennessy. It's great to see so many different promoters, different broadcasters getting involved in this, and it's fantastic that you can almost sort of lay down the agendas and just enjoy this one big night. Fantastic there's so much collaboration, and long may that continue, and that's why I really hope that Taylor Catterall happens, that AJ Fury happens, that Spence Crawford happen. These big fights which are maybe across the political divide or different broadcasters, people coming together to make the fans happy, and that's what we need more of, and I think this year's been a real breakthrough of that.
Last one, Adam. Tyson Fury and Frank Warren have given Anthony Joshua a 24-hour deadline to accept their deal, or they will move on. Realistically, do you think Anthony Joshua will accept?
I mean, everything in boxing, especially with big fights, has genuinely taken time. So that's a very strict and harsh deadline. I'm sure if they were able to make it sometime next week, it could still happen. Obviously, the problem, if they want the fight to happen in December or late November, is that the fighters have got to get a move on, because training camps are 8-10 weeks long, and obviously there's a big promotion to have, so they need it to happen quickly. I think the good news I'm hearing is that Eddie and George and Francis and Frank and Bob's here, obviously. They're having meetings and they're talking, which is probably further than we've had before. So I'd like to remain positive and think that this fight could happen this side of Christmas. I mean, I think Tyson wanted it one date and AJ wants it later December. I mean, for me, these are small things. If they can get the money and the broadcasting deals done and everything goes into a big pot, I think the biggest strength with this is that both Tyson and Anthony want the fight. That's great. Maybe get them in a room and don't come out until it's done. But I don't know. There's always smoke and mirrors with these things, and I'm not really involved in it. I watch from afar, but the signals I'm getting from the different sides is positive. So fingers crossed, maybe we will get it. But we all know boxing is a strange and different business, and things can be altered overnight. So I was surprised at the calmness that Tyson came out with this week, with the proposal, and then the offer, the 60-40. AJ came back, and Benga's been around this week. He's hopeful it can be made, but also there's people that have got to protect their fighters on both sides and make sure they get the right deal and the right fights. And I'm not sure how Freddie's thinking. I'm not sure how Bob's really thinking about this, but there's a lot of good signs. So let's see.
Let's certainly see. Thank you very much, Adam, for your time, and I'll speak to you again soon.
No problem. Look forward to it.
Yeah, my dad in the street against a heavyweight.
I've gone back to the dad. I've punched him a few more
There's 5
times.
blokes outside my front door. You coming in?
One hell of a fucking story, so stay tuned.